Welcome to my YouTube channel and the home for the Tentative Yogi. I teach yoga from the bottom up so you can learn it safely and enjoy it for years to come. In today's video, I'm going to share 3 tips for Trikonasana or triangle pose. And specifically, I chose the tips to cover the most common errors I see in this pose for beginners. And these are particularly important because they can cause injury in the long run. So I want to make sure that we nip these in the bud as soon as possible. Now for this video, I definitely recommend having a block as you play with your Trikonasana. I am not a rest your hand on your leg kind of teacher. I really believe in the block. It gives you a little bit more stability. It's also more grounding. There's actually quite a few reasons for it, and I can do a separate video on it. It's both safety but also energetic reasons. It's really awesome. If you want more information about that, feel free to comment below and I will create a separate video. If you don't have a block, all good. Use your leg, that's totally fine. You can definitely explore what we'll be talking about today with a block. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the alignment of the torso. There's actually 2 of the tips are going to be based on this upper body. Okay, so in this pose, the 2 most common things I see, 2 most common errors, of course, and I'm sure you've seen this before, is coming forward with this arm and or curving the spine. So let's talk about the first one first. So here's the thing. When you come forward or round, either way, you can go further. I'm using quotes because it just means you're going closer to the floor, but it actually doesn't mean you're deeper in the pose. You're actually taking it in the back in ways that aren't safe in order for you to get more deeply into it. We want to be better aligned to protect the back, to protect the body. It is hard to know where you are in space in this pose. Yoga teachers often talk about feeling like you're between 2 plates of glass as you move into the pose. Well, it's great if you had 2 plates of glass and it could actually feel it, but that's a little tricky. So a trick I like to do is to back people up against a wall. Now this is not perfect and I will share with you why, but if you can get up to a wall, then what you can do is feel your shoulders on the wall. Now, if you do this, you'll know, and you might be just watching, or if you're doing it with me, you're going to feel that this back shoulder feels like it's coming a little further than is natural, and that's because our hip is a little bit in the way, right? So you want to get as close to the wall as you can, but your hip is still going to be a little bit in the way, so that you almost have to, not almost, you have to twist to get there. But you can keep your back hand against the wall so that shoulder comes forward just a little, but follow the line of the wall. And you're going to say, holy cow, I had no idea. You won't be able to go as far. You have no idea how far that you had been cheating, if you will, to get more deeply into the pose. But it's going to give you a better idea. So it's not perfect. Again, you can't get that back shoulder against the wall because it's really too far because of your hip. But you can keep that hand on the wall. And what I have my students do is just go into it and out of it a few times just to get the feel, and then move forward away from the wall and go in and out a few super slowly. Because the other thing you have to remember, I mean, depending on how many Trikonasanas you've done, you might be shifting a really ingrained habit, so it can take some time. And you want to be patient with yourself, and every time you go into Trikonasana from now and for the next 6 months, you might have to be thinking about pretending like both hands are against a wall behind you. And I will tell you, I still periodically back myself up against the wall just to see if any bad habits have crept in. Totally okay to do that. Okay, second thing is watching that you aren't rounding through the rib cage to come down. You want the spine to be nice and long and feel the movement from the hip joint. So one of the things I like to do is to have students reach out with their bottom arm. So extend, extend, extend. You can even have a friend pull your hand. I'll do that with some of my students. And sometimes I'll even push in through this so they can really feel that they're going more deeply into the hip joint rather than rounding. So you go as far as you can, then take the hand down and come up. And you will feel really elongated. You want to feel a nice long spine, not a ton of stretch on the top. You'll feel a little bit, but not a ton. And then you'll know that you're aligned. Okay, the last tip is about your knees, specifically the knee on your front leg. Now, if you have watched my Warrior 2 video, my tips on the lower body, I'll link it here just in case you haven't seen it, then, or here, one of the sides, you will know we've talked about knee alignment. Knee and toes should always face the same direction. That maintains a healthy knee. In Warrior 2, we often drop that knee in, and that just over time causes injury, little micro injury on the inside of the knee, and it probably won't be until Warrior 500 that you feel anything, but over time it will create discomfort. But here's what's interesting. You know in Warrior 2 which way your knee's facing, right? Because it's bent, and so you want to make sure it's pointing toward the toes, so it's kind of obvious. But what's interesting is even with the leg straight, see if you can see this, we tend to drop that knee in. So this is what you can do. Come into your Trikonasana position, leg is straight, and then just bend your knee. And notice which way it's pointed. You can see mine is not pointed toward my toes. And that's because that leg tends to turn in, okay? What you want to do is open that leg. You actually contract through the quadricep and open it. And now when I bend it, it's pointing right toward the toes. And what's interesting, you might feel like it feels a little awkward because you have to think about contracting it. But then you move into the pose, you're going to have so much more control in that lower body. And you're even going to be able to reach out with that hand. You're going to feel more open to be able to do our first 2 tips. As a result of it, you'll be more grounded and your foundation will be firmer. So what I always do, especially when I'm just starting with students, is I have them always bend their knee a little bit before we get started. Was it dropping in? Open it. Straighten the leg, keep it open. So keep the knee pointing toward the toes. All right, that'll keep the knee safe, and we're going to keep our back safe in Trikonasana so you can enjoy yoga for years to come. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, click on the subscribe and the notification on the bell so that you get a notification every time I drop a new video. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.